So we're just coming up, this is the Sydney Hospital or Sydney Eye Hospital, we're just coming up to the New South Wales Parliament. It's the 17th of March 2026 and this is a stop Min's ban on protest slogans protest outside the Parliament here. Apparently one of the speakers, one of the Greens members will be coming out, which is Jenny Leong, she said. It's a small number of people, I would say, not a reasonable number, but a small number. So it'll kick off. I'd say it'll kick off pretty soon. Yeah, just got slagged off a little just then. But so yeah, they haven't been able to block the road or to block the. It's only just the footpath, pretty much. Trying to sneak through. So there will be some speeches. They've got it set up for that. And like I said, one of the Greens parliamentarians will be coming out, which is Jenny Leong, and probably some others too, because they're actually inside today. There's some Christians praying or something or other. These guys, I don't quite know what they are. I think they are anyway. So yeah, we'll see what happens with it all. And it's put on by the Stop the War on Palestine group, a group of Palestinian activists in Sydney. Yeah, there's the cop coming over now to have a chinwag with them. They just have now blocked the road, and they're turning people on this side, the left-hand side, I guess you would call it, the southbound side. They have blocked that now, so people will be able to get spread out onto the road. Even though it's not a massive protest, but there's a certain number of here. And like I said, it's a protest against the Min's government, who are attempting to ban certain protest slogans, which has happened in Queensland as well. In the last week's protest, 2 people were arrested, or one was arrested and one was released, or something or other, for having, I think it was from the river to the sea. But this one, they're primarily, I think they're okay with that, but they're primarily concerned with the Globalise the Intifada slogan. So let's see what happens. So they really did only just shut the road dead on 6 o'clock. I'm assuming they thought the numbers would be bigger. Rachel Evans coming in hot there on her bike. That might be one of the Greens people there. I don't know. I only know a few of them. Probably know more of the Greens than I know of the others. But so the speeches will be kicking off pretty soon, I'd say. And where's the microphone set up? There doesn't seem to be a stand as such, but there is a speaker there, so those guys got they're putting some tape across their mouths, some of them. I guess as a statement. This guy's just doing it now in the middle of the screen. Oh, that's a lovely shirt that he's got on. Well, that would be appreciated by a lot of people. Stop the bombing now. From Gadigal to Gaza, Globalise the Intifada on that sign. Forget slogans, just ban Chris Minns. There's another sign there. Yes, it's just on it. I don't know, maybe she's media, not at all a Greens member. Banning slogans, censorship is so 1984. Yeah. Rachel's doing a few Protect Trans Kids t-shirt on. A little bit of a variety. I'd say this fellow here in the middle of the screen now may be running the show. If not, maybe the other fellow in the middle now, he might be. We shall see. As the drumming finishes, I'm sure they will kick off. Alright, the drumming is still continuing. There is one mainstream media. He has his little Channel 9 microphone, and down there. All right, back to pausing until something actually happens. It's about to kick off.
Hi everyone, we might get started now if people want to gather around. That way? This way. Oh, okay. How's that? All right, good. Hi everyone, welcome. We're all here today to protest the threatened ban on our righteous slogan, Globalise the Intifada. And which is essentially against our right to protest against the genocide that is happening in Gaza, our right to stand in solidarity with Palestine and actually with everyone that is fighting oppression around the world. So this rally's been put on by Stop the War in Palestine. My name's Caitlin, I'm an activist with SWAP. And before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge that we're rallying today on Gadigal land, the land of the Eora Nation, that sovereignty was never ceded, that the struggle for justice, land rights and self-determination continues across this continent. And I think special acknowledgement has to be made to the staunch activists who organised the Invasion Day rally, who stood up against Chris Minns and said, we will march, we don't care how many Israeli war criminals you bring to parade around our city, we will march on Gadigal land. And the tens of thousands of people that walked with them, that marched in that march and showed that defiance with them. And I think that has created exactly the kind of opening that we need to push ahead and to push back against all the other laws that Minns is attempting to pass at the moment. This is a government that has spent the entire summer thinking up new ways to try to stop our movement, to try to stop us protesting, to try to stop us speaking out in our workplaces, our schools, our universities, and the rest of it. But we will not have it. This is just another anti-protest law that's been attempted to be passed by Chris Minns to stifle and smear the Palestine movement. As people will probably know, last week on 11 March, 2 protesters were arrested moments after Queensland Premier Christopher's ban on the slogans from the river to the sea and Globalise the Intifada were passed. And interestingly enough, the Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has actually praised the ban that's been passed in Queensland and has recommended that it be extended to other states, which Minns is willingly now attempting to do. So we stand in solidarity with those protesters and we urge them to continue to fight and to know that these phrases are a righteous and utterly justified call for an end to Israel's genocide in Gaza and a call for Palestinian freedom. So just on Intifada, the Intifada is an Arabic word meaning shaking off or uprising. And in that sense, it's the word that you might use to describe the uprising that happened in the Warsaw Ghetto against the Nazis. It's also the word that you would use to describe the Soweto uprising and other uprisings, magnificent uprisings that happened against apartheid in South Africa. You might use it to describe the first Mardi Gras that happened here on Gadigal land. You might use it to describe the Stonewall riots that kicked off the queer rights liberation movement around the world. And it is pure racism to say that we cannot use the word Intifada to describe exactly the kind of movements that we need here in Palestine and all around the world. But of course, Intifada in the context of Palestine does mean fighting the oppression of Israel. The first Intifada in 1987, the second in 2000, Palestinians rose up in the most brutal of circumstances and fought their oppressors. And the slogan now, the slogan to globalise the Intifada, it means firstly to stand in a basic solidarity with the right of those people to fight their oppressors. But it is also, most importantly, and I think most frighteningly for Western leaders and for Chris Minns, it recognises the need for that struggle, that uprising to spread internationally, in particular against the Western imperialism that the Australian government is a part of, that enables Israel's occupation and its genocide. It includes governments like the US that supply all the bombs being rained down on Gaza and now Lebanon and Iran. And it also includes governments like Australia that supply F-35 parts and crucial intelligence to Israel to continue its genocide. And I think Chris Minns will be watching very, very closely to see the way that the ban plays out in Queensland. But I think he will also still be reeling from and hopefully have learned some lessons from the almighty response of our movement to his continued attempts at repression and silencing over the last 3 months. The Minns government has thrown everything that they had at us over the summer, attempting to blame the Palestine Solidarity Movement for the horrific anti-Semitic attacks in Bondi. They banned protests, they've shut down our city to roll out the red carpet for that war criminal Isaac Herzog. He set loose his rabid attack dogs in the New South Wales Police Force on protesters of all ages. And what did he get? What did he get in response? He got tens of thousands of people on the streets defying his bans, facing up to the police thugs and saying, we will not stop marching and we will not stop chanting for Palestine. But we're going to need that same defiance and that same level of organisation to defeat this threatened ban on our slogans, as well as to defeat the raft of other filthy laws that this government is trying to introduce. Silencing teachers in schools, silencing public servants and the rest of it. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who's been in the halls of Parliament with Chris Minns himself. Oh, actually, no, she's not here, is she? Nope, scrap that. Hopefully soon. But first we're going to go to, drum roll, Michelle Berkon, who is from Jews Against the Occupation.
Firstly, I acknowledge that we meet on sovereign Aboriginal land. I recognise the deep connection between First Nations peoples and country and thank them for their millennia of stewardship. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and pledge my solidarity in their anti-colonial struggle. As always, I represent Jews Against the Occupation 48. Zionists have a few epithets for anti-Zionist Jews. A new one just dropped. The pick-me Jew, as in the pathetic, over-eager school kid bursting at the seams to stand out from their classmates. In other words, we support Palestinian rights because we want pats on the head. Whatever. But the new insult is actually gold. Is there anything more pick-me than Minns being umbrella boy for Herzog? As Australia slides to the far right, Labor is scrambling for relevance, eyeing potential voters who aren't ready to openly declare their racism by supporting One Nation and the likes, but are sniffing the air. And Labor obliges with racist dog whistles, harsh legislation and brutal policing. The Zionist lobby doesn't even have to try. The pick-me Premier is their man. But let's not fall into the Liberal trap of blaming the individual for the sins of the system. It was only a matter of time before the legislative tools used for nearly a quarter of a millennium against the Aboriginal and Torres Strait owners of these lands were mobilised with almost total bipartisan agreement against any impediment to the colonial capitalist juggernaut. Since 1988, New South Wales has been spawning laws restricting protest on public land. But the pick-me Premier is not content with closing our public spaces to the inconvenient process of democracy. He wants to close our mouths and police our clothes. He's got Globalise the Intifada in his sights for being, quote, hateful, violent rhetoric. As my comrade pointed out, in Arabic, intifada means to shake off, to awaken, to come to consciousness, as well as to resist oppression. As well as the few examples that she gave, it was also applied and is applied to the dozens of anti-government and anti-colonial strikes, riots and protests across North Africa and West Asia, aka the Middle East, since the 1950s. Nothing to do with Jews? Okay. sometimes to do with Jews. The 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the Jewish armed revolt against nasty extermination, is called an intifada. And if Jewish Zionists tremble at the prospect of Palestinian resistance against Israeli oppression, there is an easy cure. Stop oppressing the Palestinians. Remove your support from the genocidal apartheid Zionist regime in Palestine. Stop making us all targets. In December 2025, 15 people were callously murdered at a Jewish event held on Bondi Beach. I'm not even going to call it an anti-Semitic event because we do not know the motivation of the killers. The event was run by the fundamentalist Jewish sect, Chabad, a sect associated not only with child sexual abuse and its cover-up, but with rabid support for the Greater Israel Project and Israel's genocide in Gaza. The murdered rabbi, Eli Schlanger, was a stalwart friend of the IDF and was pictured lolling on the bonnet of a military vehicle with a bunch of cheerfully genocidal soldiers. But our pick-me premier reckons he, quote, was a great man, a gift for our city who did so much, not just for the Jewish community, but for everyone who lives in New South Wales. Really? Of course, the shootings were immediately seized upon as evidence of raging anti-Semitism. Police won't release the videotaped confession of Naveed Akram explaining his and his father's motives, so we don't know. But when the self-anointed Jewish state is surpassing even its own impressive record for savagery, and most Jewish communal bodies are cheering it on and claiming that Zionism is intrinsic to Jewish identity, Jews are going to be in the crosshairs. But Minns doesn't give a rat's ass about Jewish safety. No Christian Zionist does. Their whole shtick is bringing on Armageddon when Jews will be toast. But he saw an opening for further repression and immediately blamed the massacre on the pro-Palestine movement. So 2026 saw the farcical New South Wales Legislative Council inquiry into measures to prohibit slogans that incite hatred. And that was only half the title. Jews Against the Occupation 48 and many others made reasoned, informed submissions. Of course, these didn't stand a chance against the febrile submissions exhorting the committee to heed only poor Jewish Zionists traumatised by slogans calling for equal rights for Palestinians. However, the Slogans inquiry was hampered by one glaring oversight. It framed the suspect slogans as being, quote, directed at the Zionist Jewish community, quote, to intimidate it and instill fear of violence, end quote. The new federal hate speech laws close this loophole. Intent is no longer required. This opens the door for malicious actors, and let's face it, all Zionists are malicious actors, to claim any number of miseries inflicted by words, irrespective of their intent. Meanwhile, the actual material immiseration of millions of Palestinians, millions of Lebanese and Iranians, millions of Syrians and Iraqis over the decades since the invasive Zionist cancer was planted in Palestine by ever-avaricious empire, that must go unreported, unacknowledged, unmourned. And we must not be enraged. We must not challenge the power structures that enable this material and cultural carnage. In fact, not merely enable it, but could not exist without it. This is the central truth that Palestine has shown the world. Slogans are powerful encapsulations of an ethos. Ours is liberation, the liberation of Palestine from Zionist occupation and apartheid. But we must not only globalise the Intifada, but localise the Intifada. We must remove Minns and every other vestige of Zionist influence from Australian social, cultural and political institutions. Globalise the Intifada, localise the Intifada, free Palestine.
Much, Michelle. And, you know, I think We're grateful to and have to acknowledge the very important role that the thousands of anti-Zionist and pro-Palestinian liberation Jewish people in Australia have played in this movement from day one. And it bears repeating that the slogan, our slogan, Globalise the Intifada, has nothing to do with calling for violence against Jewish people. We're calling for an intifada against Anthony Albanese, against Penny Wong, against Chris Minns, against Albert Systems, against BAE, against all the other weapons companies that have headquartered offices within this CBD. Those are the people we're calling for an intifada against, and who we will continue to fight against. And I think the fact is that both Minns and Anthony Albanese have been desperately trying every tactic in their book to neutralise our movement since October 2023. And that is in order to push ahead with their own intentions. They want, Albo has been desperately, revoltingly actually, trying to ingratiate himself with Trump. This second, with Trump 2.0. Doing everything that he can to make sure that AUKUS deal goes through, that we get those murderous nuclear submarines, that we continue to build up the US military presence in Australia, that the military industry continues to expand across Australia, which is what it's doing right now. We are what is standing in the way of that, and they're very aware of that. And now, I think it has to be mentioned that we're also looking at, on the brink of potentially another horrific, more widespread war across the Middle East that Australia is looking to get, is becoming more and more engaged in. Another war that has killed over 1,500 Iranians by now, including the 168 schoolgirls at the school last week. Attacks are continuing on Lebanon, and what has Minns had to say about that in terms of real violence when he tries to tell us that our slogans are calling for violence? That is violence, and that is what we're here against today. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is also an activist with Stop the War in Palestine, Adam Adelpour.
Caitlin, and thank you, Michelle, for speaking those powerful words. And as was mentioned before, we've just seen exactly what Minns wants to bring to this state in Queensland, where you've had a teenager dragged off by 15 cops for doing nothing more than having a slogan "From the river to the sea" on her singlet, threatened with 2 years jail for that slogan. Disgusting repression, silencing and censorship that Minns wants to bring to this state. And as was mentioned, this is the guy who held an umbrella over Isaac Herzog, a man who signed the bombs that dropped onto Gaza, a man that said there was no innocent people in Gaza, where half the population are children. They want to say it's a crime to call for uprising, to call for intifada, and to call for resistance. And they want to create a situation where anyone who speaks against the war crimes of the likes of Herzog, Netanyahu, Albanese and Wong, that they should be dragged in cuffs off the street like Bonnie. It is absolutely shameful, and we stand here in defiance of that repression. The whistleblower Edward Snowden said, when exposing a crime is treated as committing a crime, you're being ruled by criminals. Well, when speaking against Israel's crimes becomes punishable by 2 years jail, it is proof that our government are criminals. It is criminal that Australia is still sending the F-35 parts to Israel and to Trump as they rain hell down on Lebanon, on Iran, on Gaza. It is criminal they are sending the intelligence from Pine Gap Spy Base to target the tents in Gaza, to target the schools in Iran, to target the apartment buildings in Beirut. It is disgusting, it is shameful, it is a war crime, and we will not be silent. But it is exactly those who are guilty of war crimes, Albanese and Chris Minns, who have an interest in trying to silence their critics with threats of jail and threats of oppression. And we're here to say it is not going to happen. As has been said, Intifada means uprising. It means throwing off oppression. It is exactly what the people perpetrating oppression are afraid of, and that's why they're trying to ban it. It is a call for rebellion against the genocide, the war and the mass murder they are part of, that Chris Minns welcomed into this state when Isaac Herzog visited. Shame. Shame. And I just want to say, the horror we are looking at in Palestine continues to grind on day after day after day. On Saturday, a Palestinian family in their car in the West Bank was executed by Israeli police. They pulled up in their police car, jumped out of the car, shot the mother and the father in the face, and shot a 5-year-old boy, Muhammad, and a 7-year-old boy, Othman, in the head as well. One of the boys survived, Khaled. He said they dragged him out of his car, beat him with his family dead next to him, and the Israeli police said, "We just killed dogs," and mocked him as his family bled in the street. That is what we are standing against. It is absolutely right to rebel, to uprise, to throw off that kind of murderous oppression, and we stand with every Palestinian that does it. And we need to understand these laws. This attack on Globalise the Intifada, it is the thin edge of a wedge. We're already seeing that in Queensland. It's Globalise the Intifada and it's from the river to the sea. The road that Minns wants to take us down is to end up like Germany, where they sent a New South Wales police delegation in January. In Germany, people have been arrested for speaking and chanting in Arabic on demonstrations. Pro-Palestine conferences have been cancelled. They've imposed sanctions on one of their own citizens, Hussein Dogru, for publishing online content about the student occupations for Palestine in Germany. That is the direction they want to take us. And we're here to say, not one step in that direction will we accept, not one step. If Minns wants to bring that kind of repression here, we'll answer him the same way we answered him when he tried to bring Herzog to Sydney and say we couldn't protest. 20,000 people turned out. He said we couldn't march. He unleashed the most barbaric police violence. We said we will march, and by the end of that night, thousands did march towards Central. That is the answer Minns will get if he tries to bring in these laws. And it's more important than ever that we stand up at this moment. Right now we're seeing the genocidal, murderous flames that Albanese and Minns helped Trump and Israel stoke in Gaza, spread to Iran, spread to the suburbs of Lebanon. The first day of the illegal war on Iran, as has been mentioned, in the first days of that war, they bombed a girls' school into the ground. And now Australia is not just arming the perpetrators, they are part of those military operations against Iran. They are part of the war crimes. They've sent a surveillance aircraft, an E-7 Wedgetail, which will gather the coordinates for targets in Iran. And if Albanese thinks we're going to buy the lie that is only for defensive purposes, we're here to say we know what you're doing. You're part of Trump's war, you're part of Israel's war, and you will be forever condemned for what you are doing right now. We've all seen the price of oil is spiking. That tells us everything we need to know about what this government is doing backing Trump's war on Iran, and backing Israel's butchery of the Palestinians. It isn't about delivering democracy. It isn't about stopping anti-Semitism. It is about defending Israel, the United States' unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East, to control and steal their oil and to shed blood doing it, just like they did in Iraq and just like they did in Afghanistan. Shame. Albanese was the first Western leader to back Trump's illegal war. Absolutely disgusting, snivelling display from Albanese, and lying to our face about it day after day, just like he lied about the weapons parts to Israel. We need Intifada to break their war machine. We need Intifada to stop genocide. We need Intifada to break the straitjacket of repression they are trying to put on every single person in this state. And we need to remember, people went to jail for opposing Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War and the United States' brutal butchery in Vietnam. But the outcome of that mass movement against the war was it won. The United States was forced out of the war, was forced out of Vietnam. Australia was forced out of the war. So when they threaten jail now for saying globalise the Intifada, they are reminding us they are the same imperialists, they're running the same system, they're the same criminals that were running the show in Vietnam, and we need to resist them like people resisted the butchery in Vietnam. That means breaking bad laws. It means protests, strikes, and civil disobedience until the genocide stops, until the US bases are out, until AUKUS is gone. Globalise the Intifada. From Gadigal to Gaza.
Globalise the Intifada.
From Gadigal to Gaza.
Globalise the Intifada.
From Gadigal to Gaza.
Globalise the Intifada.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Loud enough so they can hear it in Queensland. From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
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 Okay, I'll hand over to our next speaker right away, Jenny Leong, member for Newtown and State MLC.
Thank you so much, and thank you for blocking the traffic here on Macquarie Street. What a pleasure to walk out of that toxic workplace and come out here and see the people taking to the streets of Sydney, acknowledging that we are here on unceded Gadigal land, always was and always will be First Nations land, and acknowledge the fact that the struggle for sovereignty and for treaty continues. And indeed, I want you to know, because they managed to bury it in the big global news of the war and the horrific police violence, that the government in there, the New South Wales Labor Minns government, shoved through a little story and announced that the treaty process has stalled and will not be proceeded with in New South Wales. We need to recognise that the struggle in response to the ongoing deaths in custody, the ongoing detention of First Nations people, and the ongoing movement for treaties and sovereignty is one that we need to stand in solidarity and power with. And I want to call out the Black Caucus for their incredible organising and mobilising. And they are planning an action this Saturday. And And if you ever acknowledge country, and if you do really recognise that the struggle is from Gadigal to Gaza, then I urge you to show up on Saturday and to follow Black Caucus and to recognise that the struggle against the ongoing genocide in Palestine is linked to the struggle of First Nations people here in this country. It is not all right for us to just stand up for human rights violations and genocide for other countries. We must call out the hypocrisy when it comes to the treatment of First Nations people here. I just came from a debate in the Parliament. We were just debating laws that were introduced by the former, I say former, that's so exciting. I was getting excited. The former Minns Labor government, maybe. I don't know. I'm just dreaming. I've been living in my own dream world for a second. Sorry. I just came in for a debate where what we saw was debate on legislation that gave police additional powers to respond to, you might recall at the end of last year, some neo-Nazis, some actual Nazis lined up outside this very parliament, I think kind of where I'm standing right now, and held a big banner that was really fucking offensive, if it wasn't offensive enough to be a Nazi standing on the streets. And the police watched them. They watched them. They did nothing. They did nothing. And the response of the New South Wales Minns Labor government was to introduce new laws to say, oh, we have to clarify for police that they have the power to be able to stop these neo-Nazis from gathering, because, you know, people get confused with Form 1s. Because a Form 1 that allows you to indicate to the police, it doesn't allow them to approve the protest is legal. It allows you to notify the police that you will have a protest, just like we've done here. Very well done to the organisers of this fucking rally today to block off Macquarie Street. And apparently the police needed some clarity and some additional powers to know that they were allowed to stop neo-Nazis from having a photo op outside of the New South Wales Parliament. Well, I just kind of pointed out to them that I wondered if they were the same police that thought they had the power to hold and restrain individual peaceful protesters on the 9th of February and beat their heads, or dislocate their limbs, or spray pepper spray in their faces. Because it seemed that those police, which I'm guessing were probably the same police given we're only a small distance away, the same police that thought they didn't have power to stop the neo-Nazis from having a photo op out the front of this building were the ones that thought they could beat up on peaceful protesters, on Muslim people praying. And apparently they didn't have enough power and they needed some clarifications. So what happens when this occurs, right? So the Minns Labor government in there saying, we'll introduce some more laws to look like we're doing something to respond to the fact that the neo-Nazis used the backdrop of the New South Wales Parliament for a photo op. So they go and introduce their law to look like they're doing something when really they're not doing much. So what happens? The Liberal opposition stand up and they move an amendment to try and insert, that's all right, doesn't matter, it's just fine. To try and insert the definition, the IHRA anti-Semitism definition into New South Wales law as a little slip through, as a little side project, as a little fucking whip up the Zionists. So what happens is they move this amendment. Now, we won't vote for it, the Labor Party won't vote for it, it won't get up. But what I'm saying is that their attempt to look like they're doing something meaningful that's not actually doing anything to stop neo-Nazis in our community then opens a door for the likes of the Liberals to then get up and to then put those kind of amendments forward and to grandstand to certain parts of our community with no interest in actually stopping the Nazis. So let's be clear here. Let's be clear here. What we are talking about when we are saying that we need to ban certain types of slogans, I don't really care if it's constitutional or not. What I care about is we shouldn't be banning slogans because it doesn't work. That actually we already have laws to stop hate speech. We already have anti-discrimination laws, albeit very outdated because the Minns Labor government have broken a promise to update the anti-discrimination laws. So on one hand, they care about social cohesion. On one hand, they pretend they care about discrimination. But actually, they They referred the anti-discrimination laws to a Law Reform Conduct Commission, and now, to the Law Reform Commission, and now they're saying they won't get around to reforming them before the next election. So on one hand, they care about all this discrimination, but they don't actually care about discrimination. They don't actually care about racism. They don't actually care about anti-Semitism. They don't actually care about division. What they care about is their own political power. And so what they care about is getting a headline. They like having a headline that makes them look big and powerful, saying, we're going to ban a slogan. Well, the question is this, and the question that I have asked to the Attorney General is this: are you just banning Globalise the Intifada in English? Or are you banning Globalise the Intifada in Arabic also? Or maybe in Mandarin? In Hebrew? Are you banning Globalise the Intifada in Swedish? Are you going to run training programs for the New South Wales Police, or will they be walking around with Google Translate on their phones trying to work out what each of these multilingual sites say? Because while they're in there proclaiming that we are a healthy multicultural community, they appear to not have realised that they are only talking about a slogan in one language. And now over 50% of the population in Australia were born or have parents born in a country other than Australia, and so presumably they could write on a sign, Globalise the Intifada, in another language. That is just one of many reasons why this is a disaster, and I look forward to us all learning multiple ways to chant Globalise the Intifada if they choose to ban it. The reality is that they are not trying to solve any issues around our community when it comes to fear or concern about discrimination and racism. They are not trying to deal with the Islamophobia that has happened to women as a result of the absolutely horrific attacks that we see, particularly on women on public transport. They ignored that for years. When there was all the anti-Chinese and anti-Asian racism that happened around COVID, they didn't give a shit about that. They ignored that as well. Yeah? When there's actual Nazis standing outside of Parliament, they don't do anything about that. But apparently when we have peaceful protests in support of Palestine, we are being anti-Semitic and we are being told that our slogans have to be banned. And that demonstrates their complete hypocrisy. And so I say to the New South Wales Premier, and indeed to the New South Wales Labor Party, that we do not stand for their complete disregard of humanity. We do not stand for their attempts to silence us while we are taking to the streets because we care about the fact that there is a brutal genocide occurring in Gaza, and that now there is an illegal war happening in Iran and in Lebanon. We say that we do not want these things to happen in our name. And just as Adam said, if they insist on passing bad laws that silence us, that force us to try and be complicit, or to have to try and comply and be complicit with their bad laws, and then complicit therefore in being silent about a genocide or about an illegal war, then those bad laws are there to be broken. And so I urge you all to keep coming out. I really want to say solidarity and thanks for people having the foresight to rally outside of Parliament today. The laws are not on the paper right now. We haven't seen them. When we see them, we will let you know. The Greens stand with you, but can I say the solidarity and power that has shown to plan to have this action today is absolutely critical. And I want to encourage and acknowledge the fact that more rallies that we can have that allow the activists, the left, the caring community members of Sydney to come out safely and protest in our city after the violence we saw at the beginning of February is critical. Because we know so many people were traumatised by that experience, and we know that we need to rebuild our faith in that these streets are ours. So I'm going to end with a chant. Whose streets?
Our streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets.
Whose streets?
Our streets.
Beautiful, everyone. May we globalise the Intifada.
The neo-Nazi neo-Nazi rally that happened right here where we are shows what the kind of mismatch in what the Minns government considers to be offensive, both outside and inside of this parliament. You know, they were more than happy for a bunch of neo-Nazis to arrange themselves here on this footpath and literally call for violence against Jewish people, which they slander us day in, day out, saying that we're lying and saying that we're calling for that when we're calling for nothing of the sort. What they do find offensive, however, the Minns government, is when they have a staff member in there, an Aboriginal staff member, who went in there with a musician who went in there with his guitar that declared no pride in genocide and that had a slogan against the genocidally violent IDF. That man, Jaden Kitchener-Waters, was fired from his job. That is what this government finds offensive, and not neo-Nazis gathering on our streets. It's our protests, our slogans that they're trying to ban, and not that of neo-Nazis. That makes it very, very, very clear where their priorities and where their values lie. And I think, speaking of the police as well, it will be interesting to see whether Chris Minns's new code of conduct for teachers and public servants is applied equally to the New South Wales Police. I don't think there's been anywhere near enough attention on this insidious code of conduct that could be used to actually fire teachers for speaking in solidarity with Palestine inside the classroom, but also outside the classroom. You know, for standing up for Palestine on their social media accounts and so on. Are they going to be trawling through the social media accounts of New South Wales police officers and seeing the absolute filth that we all know is on there, the racist filth, the sexist filth? A delight in beating protesters to a pulp? I don't think so. I think they'll probably get away scot-free. So on that note, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. I think that both schools and the education sector, the tertiary education sector, have been very important sites for struggle over standing up for the right to speak out against oppression and speak up for Palestine. So our next speaker is Vince Caughley, who's the New South Wales Division Secretary of the National Tertiary Education Union. Thanks, Vince.
Friends and comrades, acknowledging that we are on unceded Gadigal land, really honoured, happy to be with you here today and on behalf of our members to defend something really, really fundamental, the right to speak, the right to protest and to express political views without the state deciding what we can and can't say. And that's what's at stake. Proposals to outlaw, globalise the Intifada from the river to the sea. They're about giving the state the power to police political language itself. This is reactionary. This is profoundly lazy. And it is ultimately completely unserious, an unserious response to an extremely serious situation. This government, instead of engaging with underlying political realities, this state government seems content to completely ignore them. As if banning words magically can resolve conflict or injustice. It is completely absurd. But of course, as we know, once that line is crossed, and if that line is crossed here in New South Wales, as it has been in Queensland, it doesn't stop there. Let's be clear. In a democratic space, you don't protect the democratic space by privileging only half an argument. The things that matter, as we know, as we well know, are politically charged. That's the nature of political debate. We have to fight, as we are, we must, to stop the democratic space in this country, in this state, from being squeezed even further. A squeeze has been on for some time, comrades. We cannot, for a millisecond, entertain the state becoming the arbiter of meaning and legitimacy. That is completely, utterly incompatible with democracy. And as we know, the squeeze has been on. As a union member, we hardly, and we do not, have the right to strike. There is not a protected right to strike in this country. In breach of multiple international covenants, in this country, for me to stop work on the agreement that I'm not even being paid, because hey, I'm not working, is illegal. Is this a democracy? Okay, we got that clear. But of course, climate protesters, confronting one of the biggest issues that humanity has faced. Guess what? Illegal. Sorry, you can't disrupt traffic, you can't disrupt profit. Peaceful protesters are being policed more aggressively. Like many of you, I was there in February. I was pepper sprayed and chased up the street by police for protesting against a genocide. On campuses in Australia at this moment, on our university campuses, staff and students are facing, and have done for the last couple of years, extreme pressure against speaking out. And now governments in this country, the Queensland government, where a lot of my family lives, where I escaped from, have now banned words. They have banned words. This is a tremendously and profound, serious political escalation. It shifts us from contesting ideas to criminalising expression. If laws passed in New South Wales, then this Labor government would be aligning itself with the Queensland LNP. Precisely at a time when that political formation is splintering like nothing else, running as fast as it can to the right and reforming around an openly racist and increasingly confident reactionary agenda. That is what this Labor government appears prepared to do. And it's not lost on us, as Jenny mentioned, only a few months ago, open Nazis and fascists congregated right here where we are standing, uncontested, displaying profoundly anti-Semitic slogans. In 20, 30 years' time, when we look at the photo that they took out the front, I'm sure people will go, hang on, did that happen? Like, did that actually happen? Was that when AI became a thing? You know, like, that couldn't have actually happened. But it happened. And that's precisely why this moment, right now, matters. The selective restriction of political speech does not confront hatred. We are the people, we are all anti-Semitic, right? We are anti-racist. We are for more rights. We are for more voices. Yes. And so what is happening now is it's misdirecting attention away from this really, really serious situation. And it is wildly irresponsible. It is outrageous how irresponsible this government is being right now. I want to make another really, really important point. It comes from the experience of our members, as I say, coming under increasingly serious attention on university campuses. Criticism of Israel, the Israeli state, criticism of Zionism as a political ideology is not anti-Semitism. Now, we know that. And that's why I know this government is not serious. The majority of Zionists are not Jewish by a factor of many. So, but they know this, and they deliberately conflate the two. And what that does, apart from putting our members under pressure by restricting the democratic space, is it actually completely undermines the fight against real anti-Semitism. And by blurring the line between hatred and political critique, it's outrageous, and it is increasingly being used to justify restrictions on speech. Think about it this way. There are a lot of people, I work with some, I know some, I have friends, part of their Chinese heritage is partially wound up in, or wrapped up in, communism. Now, if I go and criticise the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese Communist government, does that make me automatically anti-Chinese? Of course it doesn't. It's absolutely absurd, and I tell you, it's intellectually embarrassing. It is utterly, completely intellectually embarrassing. But of course, the clearest thing of all, the reality we can't ignore, there's a fucking genocide taking place.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? It is happening. It is in breach of multiple international legal obligations. It is happening before us in plain sight. It is our fundamental right to protest against it, and to try to suppress that expression. It is not a neutral act. It is a hostile act. It has nothing to do with social cohesion. It is picking a side. It's a restriction on political freedom in the face of serious violations of international law. This is the line that we draw, friends and comrades. We will not accept a future where governments decide what political expressions are lawful, and because once these rights are curtailed, they are not easily won back. The stakes are really, really high. And so, to finish, friends and comrades, on behalf of our union, the National Tertiary Education here in New South Wales, on behalf of our members, I commit to each and every one of you, we will, with you, publicly, without apology, anytime, anywhere, always defend the right to speak, always defend the right to protest, and certainly protect the right to dissent. Solidarity to all.
Thanks so much, Vince. And the union movement, both here and around the world, particularly in the Mediterranean in recent months, has played an extremely important role in continuing to keep Palestine at the centre of, as the central question, and actually using their industrial strength to stop the bombs going over to Israel. We've seen mass strikes in Italy. They've been joined by wharfies in Greece, who have also been joined by teachers and academics and medical staff there. We've seen those bans and strikes extend to Belgium, parts of France and elsewhere, and we need exactly that kind of organisation and struggle here in Sydney. So I urge anyone here to come and talk to us and Stop the War in Palestine to see how you can get involved. Also get involved in your union, and also with your union Palestine Solidarity Group. And so speaking of solidarity, I just wanted to raise a chant in support of the arrestees that are facing potentially 2 years in prison as a result of these laws in Queensland, which is an absolute shame. So there's Ngiyampaa is a student protester who's facing those charges, and we also want to call to drop the charges on the arrestees from the Isaac Herzog protest. So I'm going to say their names, and I want you to say drop the charges in response. Ngiyampaa, drop the charges. Herzog protesters, drop the charges. Ngiyampaa, drop the charges. Herzog protesters, drop the charges. And as our other speakers have said today, the people who really need to be arrested and dragged in front of the courts are, Chris Minns and Anthony Albanese and Isaac Isaac Herzog and Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Those are the people who should be dragged before the courts, and not our comrades standing up in solidarity with Palestine. So I'll introduce our final speaker now, who is about to set sail on the global Sumud Flotilla in solidarity with Palestine. We have Ethan Floyd, who's a Wiradjuri, Wailwan and Ngiyampaa activist, and will be joining the Sumud Flotilla in the next couple of weeks. So welcome, Ethan.
Thanks very much, Caitlin. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Hands off Gaza!
Hands off Gaza!
Hands off Gaza!
Hands off Gaza!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
From the river to the sea!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Thank you, comrades. Thank you all for being here today. It's always a privilege to be here, to hear the likes of Michelle Berkon speak with such clarity and such principle on these issues, and to hear Jenny Leong speak as well, two staunch activists for Palestine. And how powerful is it to be here in front of New South Wales Parliament, this symbol of colonialism and of oppression, with friends. It's good to be here with friends, with SWAP, with my comrades in the NTEU who are on the front lines of the fight for academic freedom and freedom of speech, and for all the other groups represented here today. Thank you for coming. Look, comrades, inside this building behind us, the New South Wales Parliament is preparing to decide whether or not the government should have the power, should have the privilege, should have the right to ban a protest slogan. Whether the state can criminalise the words spoken by people like us who dare to oppose a genocide. But out here, outside the Parliament, on the streets, we already know the answer to that question, and we've known for quite some time. Out here, we know exactly what this slogan represents. It represents the liberation of Palestine and of Palestinians, and an end to Israeli oppression and an end to Israeli occupation. That's what the chant stands for. That's what an intifada is the rising up of Palestinians against Israeli oppression and occupation. And to globalise this act means that we don't just stand up for the rights of oppressed peoples in Palestine or in Iran or in South Sudan. We stand up for the rights of oppressed people anywhere in the world. And as ordinary people, we have the right to stand against injustice wherever it occurs. Inside the Parliament, they think they can control the narrative. Outside the Parliament, the truth is clear as day. People can see what is happening in Gaza and in the West Bank, and what's been happening for the last 78 years. The deliberate bombing of homes, the destruction of hospitals and schools, the starvation of civilians, and the murder of doctors, aid workers and journalists. Shame. And they can see as well that the violence does not end at Gaza, but has spread to Iran, to Lebanon, to Syria, to other communities in the region, and our leaders, our political class, are chomping at the bit to line up behind Trump and behind Netanyahu in support of their aggression, their imperialism. And that's exactly why governments are trying to police our speech, because we know what they're doing. And we already know, we can already see where this road leads us. And other speakers have explained it far better than I ever could. But we can't forget, it bears repeating, last week in Queensland, 2 people were arrested under draconian new laws banning those phrases, from the river to the sea, and globalise the Intifada. One was arrested for chanting the phrase, all right. One was arrested for wearing it on a t-shirt and told that by doing so she was intending to menace and harass communities. What a load of shit. And for years I've had people say to me, and it's actually picked up a lot in the last week, in my DMs, in my comments, do you even know the name of the river? Do you even know the name of the sea? As if people coming out week after week after week for years protesting a genocide somehow don't know what we're talking about. It's like some kind of gotcha. So for all of those people playing the name of the river game, let's do it together now. The river is what? Jordan. And the sea is what? Mediterranean. And what do we want between them? Freedom. Freedom. Fuck yeah, exactly. Freedom for everyone who lives there. And that's what they're trying to silence. That's what they're trying to shut down, is our call for freedom, for dignity, for liberation, and for equality. That's all we're asking. Now, inside this building, MPs will soon cast their votes on a really simple question. The question is this: will you defend the right to protest for Palestine, or will you try to silence it? And there are some Labor MPs in particular who have to think very, very carefully about that question, because many of you will remember just last month on the 9th of February, a group of Labor backbenchers stood with us out on the streets to protest the visit of Israeli President Isaac Herzog. Those Labor MPs were Dr. Sarah Kane, Stephen Lawrence, Cameron Murphy and Anthony Diadam, and you might have seen them coming out the Parliament, and they had a bit of a look at what's going on out here today. They chose in that moment to stand with the movement, and they told us how concerned they were about the violence in Gaza, and they told us how sorry they were, how deathly sorry they were that these anti-protest restrictions were able to be used to justify police brutality that night. And now is the time, really, to put their money where their mouth is. Really, it's a simple choice for Labor MPs in particular. If you don't agree with draconian anti-protest laws, stop fucking voting for them. Stop tripping over yourselves to line up behind Chris Minns. And if you don't agree with Chris Minns cozying up to genocidal war criminals, holding their umbrellas, I love this sign, Umbrella Boy Chris Minns, then you need to turf him out. So when it comes to banning these protest slogans, MPs have a choice to make. Are they going to stand with the people outside this building, or are they going to line up behind Chris Minns like they have time and time and time again? Because the reality is this: they may try to ban a slogan, but out here, our movement, this movement, continues to grow and grow. Around the world, there are millions of people taking to the streets and demanding justice and liberation for Palestine. Students occupying universities, workers shutting down ports and factories, communities organising wherever they happen to be. A global movement has emerged, and it's not slowing down at all. And our movements, don't recognise any borders. And it's with that in mind that, as Caitlin mentioned, in a few weeks, I'll be joining the global Sumud Flotilla. And I'm joined today by comrades in the crowd who are taking the brave step to join me in that flotilla effort. Together, we will be joining thousands of ordinary people from around the world, more than 3,000 people from 80 countries on almost 200 boats and growing, to deliver food, water, medicine, and other life-saving humanitarian aid to Gaza. We all come from different countries, we all speak different languages, and we all carry different histories, but we are united by a single shared belief: that when governments refuse to act, ordinary people must. And when our flotilla sets sail, it will not just be carrying aid, it will be carrying the voices of this movement. It will be carrying your voice. It will be carrying the message that people all around Australia, here on Gadigal land and across the country, refuse to be silent in the face of a genocide. Because an attack on free speech anywhere is an attack on free speech everywhere. And like Vince said, if we don't stop it here, we can't stop it later. And we've already chanted the phrase that they've banned in Queensland, but we know it's a different phrase under threat in New South Wales right now. So we're going to keep chanting today, louder and louder and louder, until they hear us. From Gadigal to Gaza. From Gadigal to Gaza. From Gadigal to Gaza. From Gadigal to Gaza.
the best of luck and send every strength to you and your comrades on the flotilla. We'll be watching it closely, and if they dare to touch you or any of the boats, we'll be out here rallying again and making sure they don't get away with any of it. I do just have a final message I wanted to pass on. A lot of us will have had the pleasure at the Herzog protest of hearing Grace Tame bravely chant "Globalise the Intifada" from the front, from the platform, as she should have. And people will probably know that since then she's faced a concerted smear campaign from the conservative media, from the mainstream media, from politicians of all stripes. An absolute disgrace. And she has sent wishes of solidarity and made it clear that she supports our protests against the slogan ban. So I'm just going to read out a couple of quotes from her before we wrap up. She says, for the past month, our conservative politicians and media have been running a concerted smear campaign against me because I led chants of Globalise the Intifada, which she characterises as a call for widespread, non-violent resistance to Israel's ongoing oppression of the Palestinian people. She also says it doesn't matter that the core message of my speech that day was one of hope, when she said, you can buy bombs and you can buy politicians, but you cannot buy the truth. You cannot buy our compassion and you cannot buy our love. These are our weapons and we will keep on fighting with them until the very end. Absolutely we will. She has also made a very important point in her writing recently, saying that according to a recent Gallup survey, US citizens are now more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause than to the state of Israel. That is an incredible state of affairs in the belly of the beast of imperialism for that to be the case. And Grace Tame actually also made the point that the tide is turning in Australia, and they know it. Albanese and Minns know it. Why else would they go to such great lengths to ban our slogans, to ban our protests and our movement? It is because they know what we represent. We know that we threaten their designs to dominate this region, to join more wars in the Middle East, to expand the military production and bases around Australia. They know, and that's why they're coming after us. So thank you everyone for coming here today. Solidarity with the flotilla, solidarity with Grace Tame, to all the arrestees, and let's globalise the Intifada. I'd like to also ask everyone, if you want to stick around for a couple more minutes, to gather around our excellent Globalise the Intifada banner here for a photo and a couple more chants. But thanks for being here today. As I said, I'm from Stop the War on Palestine. You can come and chat to our group over at our stand over there. Buy a Globalise the Intifada badge, hot off the press, and get involved in the movement. So just another round to finish us off for the night. From Gadigal to Gaza.
That's it now. They closed up the whole road in the end. While I was sitting there, I didn't know. It's not a massive crowd, but there's the red carpet guys turning up. I don't think there'll be a march. They're just going to have a photo op. He's had a bit of a redo of his. Well, they're going to get a photo op in now. Let's give it 2 seconds and we'll get onto it.
Globalise the Intifada! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! From the river to the sea! Palestine will be free! From the sea to the river!
Alright, so that is now it. I believe. So they had the yeah, they had their photo op at the end, and now I think it's going to be a dispersal from here. There won't be pretty sure there won't be a march, unless anyone attempts it, but I doubt it. Well, I guess the road is closed, so I guess they'll march. I mean, they'll just pretty much disperse. Mostly people will either go down here to Martin Place. So, I'm not sure. He's talking to the cops, I think, but can't really quite understand what he's saying. Yeah, that's it. That's it for another one. It was a good look. I did notice the crowd swelled slightly, but well, what do you got there? 10, 20, 30 years, maybe less than 100 people, but not quite sure how many. Quite sure.
It's right, as I say. Palestine, Jesus, Palestine.
Anyway, that's it. I'm going to wander off, and yeah, so you can leave him yappering. Walk down. Might as well walk down the middle of the road while we can until we get. So there's a projection on the wall here. I nearly missed that. Not a bad wall for it. What's it say? Matilda, 10 years old. That's the little girl that died in Bondi. It's wrong. It's wrong in Bondi. It's wrong in Gaza. Both lives were precious. Both kids deserve to live. And find him, Rajab, 6 years old. Yeah. Well, we might end on that one, eh? Leaving the Palestine rally, or the rally against protest slogans, Palestinian protest slogans, and then walking down Martin Place, down towards the GPO building, which is just opposite this, and they have another Iranian protest on here. Have the Israeli flags today, but it's for Reza Pahlavi, who's the Shah's son, who they want installed now as a new leader. It's the usual guy that does their protests up the top, and you should have the lion. They have the same Iranian flag, but this has got the lion and the sun on the flag, not the one that the group has now. Then they'll often have a few Aussie flags, and then they often also have a few Israeli flags, but no Israeli flags today, which is unusual. I don't really hear what he's saying. There's a few of the Palestinians are walking down on the other side, so I don't know. Yeah, they're walking. There's nothing's going on with them. It's only the Aussie flag going on. There's this guy. He said everything. The guy that's just leaving now in the middle there. The Palestinians across the way, just walking past. There's no issue. But the last time there was a coup, it didn't go so well. It wasn't such a cordial. It wasn't such a cordial thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's got a nod and a wink from one of them. Like a head shake. I don't know. They probably just don't know why I'm filming or why, I don't know how far into it is, but I got to go home and have dinner. So we'll catch them another day. The numbers are certainly dwindled on what they were. The original Iranian protests had literally tens of thousands. Now there's maybe 100. But that's how all the protests go, I guess. Once things die off, there's probably going to be more coming up, which would be the other side of that, the anti-war, anti-takeover of Iran protest. Here's the bikes. Have a little film of the bikes as we go. I guess this must be a spot where they have to leave them now. There's a freaking shitload of them here. There's a whole bunch more up there. I've gone past a whole bunch as well. I didn't yabber on about them for once. But yeah, we're just coming. This is Pitt Street. When you get to the end of this, or another block or 2 blocks maybe, 1 block, not even half a block, you get to Pitt Street Mall. This is a hotel, I believe. What the hell is this called? Anyway, that's why I always like if I keep filming and commenting, I blabber on, and I'm just talking about, you know, I'm just talking about rubbish mostly and e-bikes. On the way here, I had a chat with my mate. I met my mate just driving. He was riding his real bike, and we were talking about the e-bikes. And he said, yeah, he went to Bondi the other day, and he parked his bike, and he said, it's the only actual bike there. All the others are the ones these kids ride down there. These big, the black ones with the big knobby tyres on them. All the local kids around the eastern suburbs all drive them. But yeah, the only other ones you see is the Uber Eats this time of night. And then plenty of these bloody things. And as anyone who knows my footage knows, I like to call them mobile garbage bins. There you go. You got a bit of Romeo's dinner, a bit more, a little bit of coffee in there as well, and one on the ground, ready to trip someone up. And a whole bunch more here. Got a couple of young ladies about to use theirs. They've already put their own Uber Eats in there, and they're going to get however they do it with a thing. They're just there everywhere. They're all along here. Look at this. They're just everywhere. They're bloody everywhere. But I think, like I said before, they must have to stop at a certain space now. Sometimes you get a helmet, sometimes you don't. We've got plenty of them at home from my climbing crew. When we go abseiling, we always have a good lime helmet or two from that I've found along the way. All right, that's enough of that. We're going to walk up through Pitt Street Mall and head home.